My partner is a white guy, and he doesn't understand that we have different love languages, for
Right.
example.
That's
Because
super
in Turkey,
interesting.
we want to, if we love people, we want to eat them. Okay, like there's this like, even like, we say like, I want to eat you.
Maybe we can shift subject and
Sure.
maybe you have something to say. I mean, I'm sure you do, but it's whether it like comes straight to your mind about like an example of when you had to kind of battle cultural differences and maybe misunderstandings.
First of all, I have never been someone who was very conformative. You know, like even when I was a child, I was a little bit like, no, this is wrong. I think of it this way, etc. I have always been a little bit like rebellious and opinionated, etc., etc. So I cannot even say like I felt at home at a particular place in my life that much. Not in a like tragic, I don't have a home, but like there is always some like mismatch. But I think the biggest cultural difference I felt was like when I came to the US. Not in Jordan, but when I came to the US. In Jordan there were certain things too, but for example, to me it was very funny that here I'm walking and somebody's just walking next to me and they say, sorry, excuse me. And I'm like, why? You didn't even touch me. People's idea of personal space is so humongous here. And I was like, this is so weird because in Turkey, I pass like this and whatever, nobody says anything. There is no need to apologize. You didn't make me fall. It's fine.
Yeah.
So personal space is one thing. The other thing is actually in my relationship. So my partner is a white guy and he doesn't understand that we have different love languages, for
Right.
example.
That's
Because
super
in Turkey
interesting.
we want to, if we love people, we want to eat them. Okay, like there's this like, even like we say like, I want to eat you, right? And I'm a person very prone to like biting and attacking and like jumping, etc. And for him, those things are just like not great for him because he's a white guy in a sense. He sometimes gets scared of the way I am at home. Yeah.
Wow, that's
also
a cool
cultural
example.
difference.
Wow. What to say? There's
Okay,
a
TMI,
movie.
TMI.
No. There's a movie about it's a cannibal love story with Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, his grandfather is Turkish.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
I was like, it runs in the blood. I'll believe anything you say. You're a professor.
Yeah, right. Don't believe anybody. Professors lie to you all the time.
That's a lesson to take away
Yes.
for the
Did
viewers.
you see Björk has this video? She says like, Björk, the singer, I think it was about artists. She says like, artists lie to you all the time, something like that. Yeah, it's very funny. You should find it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like, yeah, we always assume. I always assume that when I'm listening to music, that they really meant it at least at some point, and it's actually crazy to assume that because then you watch movies and see how good people are at acting, and how these people are, paid just as much as actors, and that could be just, they could just be really good at acting, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
I mean, you just have to be a good storyteller or something like this.
Yes.
Julian, do you
Do you have a
do
question?
you have any
Julian?
questions?
I mean, I was pretty interested in your cultural mismatch that you were talking about. I don't really know.
You don't know what I mean by that?
No, I do know. I feel like I know what you mean, but I'm just interested in. I don't know what else to ask about it, but
Tell me more, you say.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, since I was a child, I was a little bit like, how can I say? I think before knowing the meaning of feminism, I was a feminist, for example, and that's not a great thing anywhere in the world. I think people don't really get very happy about it. So they think that you are being difficult. They think that you are exaggerating, etc. That's one thing. The other one is, I don't know, just like, for example, let's say fashion, right? Even like about that, I have never been that conformist. For example, right now I come to class just wearing whatever I want to wear, and I know like a lot of my colleagues sometimes think about like I should look like a teacher, I should act like the teacher, and I feel like whatever, like if they don't like me, they don't like me. If they don't think that me looking like this is not gonna, I don't look like a person who can give people some knowledge, okay, that's their problem. So in that way, I don't. Yeah, that kind of conformity doesn't. I cannot deal with authority in a very good way. I mean, like during my universities, I was also like quite active. I can say that I belonged to a political party, but I was politically active as much as I could. So I like this. I like contention. So, and this is, I think, a character trait for me.
That's crazy that extends to colleagues, like that your colleagues would care.
Everybody does, especially if you're a young scholar, right? Because unfortunately we are ageist in that sense, in a reverse way here. We think like older people are better sources of knowledge, and if you're a woman, that's also another bias that you may have to contend with, because people don't like listening to women that much. And the other one, I'm an international student, so I'm somebody with an accent, and there is an element of like you may fear that you may not be able to establish authority, but I just try to be as small and as freaky as possible to establish authority.
Nice.
Yeah.
Small and freaky. That's what we got.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think that, there's all these ways that we feel society wants us to be and people around us want us to be. And, in one sense, I've always had this kind of feeling that the more you can just ignore that and be yourself, in the end, the more people will appreciate that. But that's not even really the goal here, to get people to appreciate it, because then you're just stuck in this loop of still caring what people think about you, and you're just acting like you don't care. And if you have that like naturally in you, that you're always trying to fight that, like, I think it's so awesome, and so actually relevant to this topic of like people want you to be something, and they actually assume that you are, and then when you don't fit that role, they don't like it for some reason, right?
Yes. Also, I want to go to your question, the thing about Turkishness. So there is something very mysterious about Turkishness in Seattle. You know why? Because so of course there are always stereotypes about people, right? Especially if those people are coming from Muslim majority countries or from the global south. But when it comes to Turkey, people are confused. They're like, okay, is Turkey in Europe or in the Middle East, etc. So from that confusion comes not being able to stereotype as much as they want to. So that always works to the benefit of somebody coming from Turkey, because most of the time people actually don't know where to place you, because it's like, okay, you don't look Asian, you're not Latina, you don't look, okay, you don't speak Arabic, you speak another language, right? But you're also not from Europe, so it's not a very easy place for people to imagine, to create a stereotype and to stick to it. Let's say.
Right. Yeah, I can confirm that as like in my experience as an American, I didn't know anything about Turkey, and that's the main reason why I went there. The most mysterious places I want to go. and I just, for some reason, we don't have that much of a connection with Turkey.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember feeling the same way actually about Denmark. I remember I met some Danish people one time, and I was like, whoa, that place still exists. Like, I only thought that, like, I only heard about it in old, in history,
Yeah.
So I was, it's such a funny place when you find yourself just confused about
They do have really nice crime shows.
crime shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Turkey.
No, Denmark. Yeah.
I think that's funny that you say that, because I think my only connection to Turkey in like Western media is my mom watching a Turkish
What, really?
cop show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What?
It's not a cop show. It's a drama, I think.
It's a drama, but it's all about.
It's called Blood Money something.
Really?
Yeah, like it translates. Like when I would say that to Turkish people, they recognized it. It's
Guys.
it comes from.
Turkish cultural imperialism, very, very serious threat. I'm telling you. Even your mom is watching it? Okay.
I mean, if my mom is.
No, because, okay, I know that, like, for example, in the Arab world, like, Turkish TV is a big thing. Because, I don't know, like, the channels buy these TV shows and then put subtitles and people watch it. And then I know certain other communities, but even, like, in Seattle, this like somebody who has no connection to Turkey or to the Middle East watching Turkish TV shows, that's
well,
something.
Actually, my aunt Jody, who was actually on the 3rd episode of this podcast, she lived in Turkey for 2 years, and she's my mom's twin sister. They watch it together, so that's probably where they.
Oh,
Okay.
really? That's where they got it.
So they're identical twins? Or?
Yeah. Exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's speaking. So wait, when you went to Turkey, you stayed for a couple of weeks, you said, right?
I stayed for 3 months.
You stayed for 3 months?
Yeah.
Did your mom come visit?
No.
Or
My
your
mom's
aunts?
no.
Ah.
Yeah, but my aunt, my aunt was actually trying to convince me to go to Morocco instead of Turkey. I don't know. She wanted me to go to either one, but for some reason, like she also lived in Morocco for a few years, and
So you already have some like travelers in your family, huh?
Yes, exactly. She's the main one.
So
And my
wait a
aunt.
second, Julian, you don't want to take this traveling route?
I don't not want to. I just don't know yet what I'm gonna do. I don't know where I'm gonna go. Or
So
what I'm gonna
what
do.
year are you now?
I'm a sophomore
Okay.
right now.
You still have some
I
time.
have time. Exactly.
Yeah.
Frederick has been traveling a lot though, for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, and
Don't you need to work, my boy?
Yeah, I work online.
Oh yeah.
Remote.
Okay, I was like, what is he doing?
Not just the podcast.
I'm like, if you
I
can
made
make money from this.
$0 from this one.
I see, you work online. Wait, okay. Yeah, you work online. You can.
I actually remember you talking about how
Oh.
how K-dramas are popular in
Yeah.
Jordan because they have a similar love language.
Yeah, because like it kind of fits this like model of romanticism that people understand. Like this kind of masculinity that is like romantic but also possessive and a little bit macho, not much, and how it is like not overly sexual but more like naive and innocent kind of like communication. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say about being an anthropologist yourself? About just ways to get to the bottom, basically to do like what I'm doing, like what strategies you use when you're trying to get like the true side of people or get
I see, like
information.
close, like intimate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Humor. Because I think if you can joke with someone, then people like if you can meet in humor, then you can share other even like more intimate issues. That's one of the things, and like being respectful to the other person, not in a just like, oh, everybody should be respectful to the other, not in that sense, but really to accept that, okay, the person in front of you may not have time to talk to you, may not want to talk to you, they may have other worries in their minds, and not to push your agenda, and let people tell their own truth, I think is important. Those are the things that come to mind.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of like just this idea of different cultural love languages and different cultural practices, like norms, the way that people feel, people in Seattle have a different sense of space. Like, how do you show respect to someone whose culture you're not familiar with?
Yeah.
They might interpret your the things you do wrong. Like when
Yeah.
you're trying to show respect for someone, the same way when you're trying to show love for someone, they might interpret it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like you need to really observe people to get a little bit of sense in the beginning. But of course, in a romantic relationship, what is important is what I want. So that's something else. But in like doing research, etc., you kind of figure it out by like day by day, like interacting with people. You understand what people's taboos are, what matter to them, what is their sense of like hospitality, what is their sense of appropriate conversation. You slowly understand it, and I think I know that like now these like extended periods of research is becoming increasingly less possible, because finding funding is difficult, and people are pushed to just publish and produce and finish their PhDs, etc. But I believe like an extended time for research actually really helps to get more like close to people, to establish rapport.
Yeah. I have this big question that's actually been in my mind for a while. Since you, and it's a perfect question that you might actually be able to answer, because you have experience learning languages, like you were just talking about, as well as learning about cultural differences and navigating those things. And one thing when I was traveling kind of helped me to be more open to cultural differences, when I had this kind of realization that maybe cultural differences are as big as like language differences, like and I think it's not necessarily true, but I just imagine like, whoa, like what if the world of understanding people is so much bigger than I think it is, like that you might have to put much more work. And I really thought about it, and I realized like even if you live in a place for years,
True.
you might learn the language, but you still might not understand the people.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, definitely, and also I'm gonna tell you, even in our personal relationships in the city that we live in, like even among brothers or friends, I mean, how much do we really understand each other? So,
Yeah.
and then add on top of it like language, etc. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible, or that doesn't mean that it's hopeless. But I think you're right. Like maybe we are also underestimating certain things, like differences, and maybe underestimating doesn't also help. Then when actually we see one difference, like my husband not wanting to be beaten by me, then you get shocked. You're like, what are you talking? It's okay. Yeah.
I always ask people how other people perceive them and how that affects them.
But I don't know how other people perceive me.
Okay.
Do you know how your other people? Tell me how you perceive me.
Well, I guess it's more like I ask them like how that impacts their lives, I guess. But yeah, that's a good point, and that's why I was about to ask you like how maybe if there's been times where you perceived something that other people were doing wrong, and that's
okay. I misunderstood somebody because I thought of something about them. Maybe.
yeah, something like this.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard question, and
No,
maybe something you don't have to
actually,
share.
No, I do have a friend that, because this friend is a very like kind of a person who really likes makeup and things like that. I thought maybe like her world, like not makeup just, but like her idea of femininity is very different from mine, and mine is not really femininity. I don't know what I'm doing, but like it's different, right? Like her performance of like being in the world as a woman is looking very different than me. Then I thought maybe our personalities would be also different, but it was just like then we became really close friends, and I understood that okay, there is this outer layer of presentation which is different, but well, but I really get along with this person really well. And how can I say, you know, I used to think like, okay, maybe when I was younger I was listening to metal music and she was listening to pop, you know, that kind of difference. But it turns out no, we really get along well, and she's an amazing person. So, but in the first look, because of certain associations about the way she presents herself, I was like, oh, maybe we are different and we won't be able to get along that well. It turns out, no, we get along really well.
Yeah, wow, that's a great example. I
Yeah.
actually had that experience a few times this year,
Really?
where, yeah, just met some people who I just thought that I would be so different from, and I really widened my range of people who on the surface, you know, and even deep down they are really different from each other,
Yeah.
but just the people that I could connect with. And sometimes you meet people who on the surface, on paper, you really should connect with them and you just don't, you know,
Yes,
it doesn't go anywhere.
work. Yeah, of course, like there are these like checkbox, and then you go like, yeah, but why don't I like this person? Even though like they fill all the boxes, but like I don't like this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like that's another thing that like when we meet people, it's all about our feelings in the end.
Do you like meeting new people?
Yes.
Good. That's a great thing. Do you, Julian?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I make it like, if I'm that aware of that as Frederick is, but I definitely do like meeting new people.
So, for example, that actually really helps you when you do research or when you move to another place. If you have this feeling of liking meeting new people, that really helps you, as opposed to someone who actually doesn't have that kind of a desire.
Yeah, it's kind of like meeting new people is an important thing, and it's totally overlooked in terms of like when I was a kid, I got the perception that that's just something you do for fun, and that's not something you really need to learn. And of course, like, yeah, maybe it's not something you can learn in a class, but like my parents didn't like push me to as like this is like a skill you're gonna need, like math, you know. And I actually found that to be different from some like maybe from I vaguely remember like Turkish people, but I specifically remember a Ukrainian person. Yeah, Ukrainian boy who actually talked about in a previous episode, because I just had like such a profound conversation with him in the street, and he said that like I told him, you know, you should be optimistic about your future because you had this ability to start this conversation in the street with me. And he said, yeah, I know. Like I've always been told by my dad that that's a super important skill to have.
They don't tell you that? They didn't tell you?
No.
I
What?
don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, it's not really seen as like a skill, I don't think.
But it is a skill. I remember actually my mom, like when I was really young, I don't know, 6, 7, she would on purpose send me to buy something so that I know how to talk to people. Yeah. So I become like sociable and an extrovert, etc.
Yeah. I think that is talked about a lot, extroverted and being sociable and stuff. But I don't think I think it's seen more as this person is this and this person is that, not like a skill
Not like
that
a
you
skill.
learn.
It is a skill.
But
I think.
yeah, I definitely think it is a skill. I see in my own life that it kind of comes and goes. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
it also depends about how you feel
Uh-huh.
during that moment, right?
Yeah. So maybe not just one person is one thing. And
Yeah, we change over time in different circumstances, definitely.
Yeah, actually, me and Julian are always talking about like how connotations are like underlying. We keep just uncovering like, whoa, we've always thought this was this way, and now it's just re-questioning like, is that really how it is, or we just think that, or did anyone even tell us that, or we just picked that up from like what it seemed like people around us thought.
But that's really great that you have each other to think together.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's very valuable.
Because we notice we have the same underlying assumptions.
Yeah, that's very true. We I think one thing that we always bond over is the fact that we have so many underlying assumptions that we can be like, we can step out of them together. We can
That's
like
great,
be aware of
actually.
them.
So now you tell me. You asked me how other people's impressions on me affect me. So how other people's impressions on me?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always, I've had this conversation recently with like close friends. Here I am avoiding not avoiding,
Yes,
but
you're
I'm going on a
avoiding.
tangent, but I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
But I think this is an interesting topic because I always make sure to only ask this kind of question to someone who knows me really well. But it is interesting also to, to someone who doesn't know you very well to hear like, what do I look like?
Yeah,
And that's
because,
interesting.
Yeah, how do I look like in the classroom? Actually, I don't know.
Right. And
Oh, this is awful for Freddie now.
right. No.
No, look, I'm joking. You cannot answer that. That's such a difficult question. Come on.
But it's all positive. It's why I come to class. It's like we have an awesome time with like how you are willing to talk and make class so like carefree. It feels like not like we have an agenda, but rather that we're having a conversation and trying to get to the bottom of something that we are interested in, and then tie it into the readings, right? And actually like make progress on some issues, right? And so it's like
Okay.
like we yeah so we feel
Oh, good.
like you are young, right? Like we can relate to you and have like a conversation like we're friends,
Okay. I mean, I think because this is a seminar, I really think people feel free to talk. But it's difficult in Seattle, I feel like.
Yes. This is a good conversation because I've had a few seminars. Honestly, this is the best one.
What?
Yeah, it's the most, I think people are willing
But
to
people
talk.
are still
I know.
holding back.
Yes, but it's still better than my other classes.
Oh my.
Yeah. 'Cause, yeah, it's pretty.
Maybe it's about COVID too. What do you
No,
think?
definitely.
Right?
COVID.
People really like had
Yeah.
this, especially for you guys, it must be so hard. As you, for example, like your university years, oh my god.
Yeah, it's very true. At least like my last year of high school was totally online, and I mean, I guess we've heard this 1,000 times,
But still,
yeah, it's just like
I mean, I have been like TAing or teaching my classes. I do notice I mean, it was never this like environment of like I come to class and everybody's talking to each other. It wasn't like that. Never. Like it's like that in Turkey, for example. People would be talking to each other, but it was at least some people would be talking to each other. They would be more open to talk. I feel like there is this after COVID, people got
Yeah.
really like they went into their shells.
really. Yeah, I honestly think it was like that to an extent in here. I mean, at least in high school. When I was
Right.
younger, you walk into a class and everyone's like standing, and when the teacher comes in, everyone has to sit down and be quiet. And yeah, that's just not a thing anymore. It's like literally, yeah. At least in my classes,
Yeah.
my experience.
I had a different experience. I feel like at university I didn't meet very many people in my classes.
Where did you meet them?
So my experience in Seattle was that I think it had a lot to do with my attitude. I have to be honest, because like when I compare it to when I did traveling, I was always so excited about, like I was so interested in people, and I always felt like they had a story to tell, that they had something to learn from them, and this was going to be a fantastic experience. Whereas like with people in Seattle,
You didn't feel like they have a story to tell.
I sort of, but also I do remember being like interested in people, but I always felt like more self-conscious and shy about it.
Why do you think?
I feel like I had less of a reason to say that I was interested in them. Like I could kind of like when I'm traveling or something like this, I feel like I could kind of I had something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had like sort of a way to mask my interest in them by just saying like I didn't even necessarily say that I was interested in them for A, B, and C, but I felt like less like meta kind of embarrassed because I felt like it's obvious that this is going to be interesting for us.
But this is very interesting. So even though you didn't speak Turkish, you felt less embarrassed.
Oh, for sure. Like in Turkey, it was like, wow, way more people than any other country.
Really?
Because they're so outgoing and interested maybe in like what I was doing there and like my blonde hair and so on.
Yeah, you had a good time with your blonde hair and your blue eyes, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Did he blush?
So, but yeah, like even in, yeah, I also think I had this safeguard bubble of being in a fraternity. You asked where I met people. I met people in a fraternity in Seattle. I think the other crucial factor was that in those places I needed to meet people because I didn't know anyone, and that was my biggest excuse. Like kind of like, I don't know anybody. Do you want to be my friend? Kind of thing. But like, I always had other friends in the U.S.
Of course.
So
you don't have to step out of your comfort zone.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, before COVID, I felt like I didn't like my classes. People were not so social, and then ever since COVID, I've been abroad and traveling. So I don't know what it's like after.
So wait, ever since all these governments told you to not travel, you have been traveling?
Exactly.
Oh my God. Were you in Turkey during COVID?
No,
Okay.
I was in the UK most of the time.
Okay, because I remember in class we were talking about it. In Turkey, the tourists, like foreigners, whatever, could actually go out, and the like people, like citizens, have to stay out, indoors. It would have been very interesting to see all these like normally extremely packed places, just like there's nobody.
That is crazy to hear.
Yeah.
So we don't want to keep you forever. Do you have any last notes on personal identity and experience that you want to share?
Let me think. Okay. I think what you're doing is really nice in the sense that you're trying to tell people, maybe through other people's voices in your podcast, like you're trying to give the message of like not to people in boxes. And I think there is something very important about that. And it's very valuable. And cynicism is too overrated. Being cynical and like being like this cool and negative and like it's so overrated. I think an outlook towards life which is curious and interested in people would hopefully eventually lead you to a more like wide perspective about people. I think that's how I feel. And if there is no curiosity, there's no point in living. I feel like curiosity is very important.
Yeah, definitely. You said earlier that you should enjoy meeting people, and then we went into a conversation about how meeting people is important, but we didn't get into a conversation about how enjoying what you do is important, and how if you move to a new place, right, you said, and you don't enjoy meeting people, you're probably not going to do it. And so like just finding the things that you enjoy, or finding a way to enjoy the things that you have to do. It sounds like you found a way to do that. I also remember another thing that I thought of earlier. So you were talking about how in your PhD you find you have a lot of pressure to do it right because it's an important thing. And you have such a high standard, and so you don't necessarily always enjoy that. Do you think someone could have a high standard without putting so much pressure on themselves and feeling like they're underachieving?
Yeah, I mean probably, especially people. I think white men can do it really well, right? They do the this amount of work and they are very happy with the work that they do. I think probably it's also about like being a woman, maybe, I don't know. No, I mean not necessarily, but there is a way. But also I think if you are not putting some pressure on yourself, especially on an issue that is related to other people, then I think it's immoral. Okay, like you do need to show a lot of care, but you're right, it doesn't necessarily mean that you put a lot of pressure yourself, but there should be consideration.
Yeah.
And I think it is possible to do it not being so harsh on yourself. Definitely it's possible.
Okay. Cool. Jillian, do you have any final notes?
No.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wow, it was such a pleasure
Yes, for me
to
too.
get to know you more, and yeah, I'm excited to listen to it.
Sure.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you.